Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at some really significant news that just dropped from Larsen Toubro, or L&T as most know them.
Yeah.
Following their board meeting on May 8th, 2025, they've put out a whole set of announcements. It gives us a great snapshot, really, into how this major Indian conglomerate is doing and, well, where they're headed next.
Exactly. And we've got a pretty comprehensive set of documents to work with here. Uh, there's the official letter to the stock exchanges covering the board's decisions, their press release summing up the financials,
Right.
the full audited financial statements, both consolidated for the group and standalone for the main company, plus the auditor reports, which are key,
Uh-huh.
and even a specific statement on how they use the cash from that recent NCD issue.
Okay, so the goal for us today, for this deep dive, is to really dig into all that material and pull out the most important insights for you. We want you to walk away with a clear picture of L&T's recent financial health, the big strategic moves they're making, and their take on the future.
Really good.
All right, let's get into it, starting with what actually happened at that board meeting.
Okay. Well, the first big thing, naturally, was the board approving the audited financial results for the full year ending March 31st, 2025.
Standard, but crucial.
Absolutely fundamental. I mean, this is the bedrock data, right? It informs everything else. And like I said, they present it both ways, consolidated for the whole L&T group and standalone just for the parent company.
Right, okay. And building on those financials, they've also recommended a final dividend. What's the number there?
34 per share. That's on a face value of 2 per share.
34 rupees. Now that's
Yeah.
that's quite a step up, isn't it, from the euro 28 they paid out last year?
It is, yeah, a noticeable increase.
So what does a jump like that usually signal? Confidence?
Generally, yes. A substantial dividend hike like this, it often points to the board feeling pretty confident about the company's current performance and, crucially, its future profitability. It's a way to reward shareholders, reflecting healthy cash flow, positive earnings, a generally positive outlook.
Makes sense. Rewarding the investors.
And for anyone listening who holds L&T shares, there are some key dates to flag, right, for this dividend.
Yes, absolutely. The record date, that's the date they check who actually owns the shares to get the dividend, is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025.
June 3rd. Got it.
And also, it's worth remembering this is still a recommendation. It needs the green light from shareholders at the upcoming annual general meeting, the AGM.
Okay, so it's not a done deal yet, but likely. And speaking of the AGM, they've set the date for that too.
They have indeed. The 80th AGM is scheduled for Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, kicking off at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time.
And how are they holding it? Still virtual?
Yep, continuing the trend, it'll be via video conferencing or, other similar audio-visual means. And for shareholders who want to vote electronically, the cutoff date to be eligible for that e-voting is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. So, yeah, important dates there for shareholders to note down.
Seems like they're trying to make it accessible and keep shareholders informed. How are they getting the full report out? Well, they've said the integrated annual report, the big document with everything, financials, director's report, all the governance stuff, that'll be emailed directly to members who register their email.
Okay.
For anyone else, they'll get a physical letter, but it'll just have a web link to access the report online. It's all moving digital, really. More efficient, wider reach.
Makes sense. Okay, so that covers the financials and the AGM logistics. But there were also some significant shifts in key personnel announced, weren't there? Specifically around the company secretary role.
Yes, that's right. Mr. Sivaram Nair A., who's been the company secretary and compliance officer, is retiring. It's effective at the close of business on May 9th, 2025.
Okay.
And the board made a point of specifically thanking him for his exceptional contributions during his time there. Always a notable moment when a long-serving exec steps down.
Definitely. And have they named a successor? They must have moved quickly.
They did. Mr. Subramanian Narayan has been appointed as the new company secretary and compliance officer. He steps into the role starting May 10th, 2025.
Subramanian Narayan. Okay. Does he have a similar background? What's his experience like?
Oh, quite extensive. Over 25 years of experience in these kinds of corporate secretarial roles.
Wow, 25 years. So someone with that kind of tenure probably brings a deep understanding of, well, everything, right? Regulations, governance, best practices.
Exactly. Navigating complex stakeholder relationships, dealing with all sorts of corporate actions, challenges, you name it. He's likely seen a lot, which makes him well-suited for such a critical position.
Where has he worked before? Any familiar names?
Yeah, his background includes leadership roles at places like Emphasis Limited, Ramco Systems, and also the Cholamandalam Group.
Okay, solid background.
And his expertise isn't just limited to basic compliance. It covers governance, board management, complex stuff like share buybacks, takeovers, mergers. Seems like a very solid appointment for L&T.
Sounds like it. And they even provided contact details for him for materiality disclosures.
Yes, they did. For reporting material events, his email is supermanian.narayan@larsentoubro.com. And the phone number is 022-675-25656. Good for transparency, having that direct line.
Good practice. Okay. Anything else from the board meeting decisions?
One more key appointment, the secretarial auditors. This is a really important part of the whole corporate governance framework.
Right. The independent check on compliance. Who did they appoint?
The firm is Ms. S.N. Anantha Subramanian & Co. They're a Mumbai-based firm of practicing company secretaries.
Okay. And is this a short-term thing? Or
No,
was
it's a 5-year term. So
Mhm.
starting from the financial year 2025-26, running right through to FY 2029-30.
A 5-year term? That suggests quite a bit of confidence. What do we know about this firm?
Well, S.N. Anantha Subramanian & Co. has been around since 1991. So you're looking at over 3 decades of experience.
Long track record.
Yeah. Their expertise covers audits, assurance, corporate governance consulting, secretarial work, navigating securities laws. Pretty comprehensive. And importantly, they hold a peer-reviewed certification.
What does that mean, peer-reviewed?
It basically means their practices and quality control systems have been independently checked out and validated by other professionals in the field. It meets recognized standards, adds another layer of credibility,
Yeah. Gotcha. So reassurance about the quality of their work. Okay, so a very productive board meeting, then dividends, key personnel changes, auditors locked in. Now let's pivot to the main event maybe. L&T's overall financial performance for the full year, FY 2024-25. The headline seems to be strong all-round performance.
Absolutely. That's the clear message coming through when you look at the big numbers.
Yeah.
Let's start with order inflow. That's always a key indicator.
Right, future business.
They pulled in orders worth over euro 3.5 lakh crore. That's a hefty 18% growth compared to the previous fiscal year. Shows strong demand for what they do.
3.5 lakh crore. Wow, where are these orders coming from? Is it broad-based?
Very broad base, yeah, across lots of different sectors and, interestingly, different geographies too. Big wins in renewables, transmission and distribution, airports, metros, the hydrocarbon sector. Quite diverse.
Okay.
But what really jumps out is the international contribution. Orders from outside India made up a massive 58% of that total.
58%, that's huge.
It is. Comes out to 207,478 crore just from international markets. It really underscores their growing global presence.
That kind of international exposure, it's good for diversification, I suppose. Spreads the risk.
Definitely provides diversification, can offset maybe slower growth back home, but it also brings its own challenges, currency fluctuations, geopolitical risks in different regions, different regulatory hurdles. Managing that global portfolio effectively is key.
True. Okay. So massive order intake. What about actually converting that into revenue? How did that look?
Also very strong growth there. Revenue crossed the euro 2.5 lakh crore mark for the year.
2.5 lakh crore.
That's a 16% increase year on year. And they put that down to, well, having that large order book to work through, plus strong execution momentum across their projects and manufacturing businesses. So they're not just winning work, they're delivering it.
Good sign. And the bottom line, profitability.
Profit after tax, or PAT, came in at 15,037 crore. That's up a healthy 15% compared to last year.
15,000 crore PAT. Nice.
That figure includes an exceptional gain, it's worth noting. About 475 crore.
An exceptional gain from what?
It came from a partial reversal of an impairment provision they'd previously made. It was related to an old joint venture, the LTSSHF one.
So basically, they thought an asset was worth less, made a provision, and now they think it's worth a bit more again.
Something like that, yeah. An impairment is like recognizing a potential drop in value. Reversing part of it suggests a reassessment. Maybe things looked better than previously anticipated for that specific situation.
Okay, so solid profit growth with a bit of a one-off boost in there. How did things look more recently, say, in the last quarter, Q4? Did they finish strong?
They did, yeah. Q4 continued that strong momentum. Order inflow was up 24% compared to Q4 last year, hitting 89,613 crore.
Wow, 24% growth in the quarter.
And again, international orders were a huge driver. 70% of that quarterly intake was from overseas.
70%.
Yeah. And their PT for just Q4 was also up strongly, by 25% year on year, reaching 5,497 crore. So yeah, they definitely finished the fiscal year on a high note.
That really does paint a positive picture overall. And what about the total order book now, the backlog they carry into the new year?
As of March 31st, 2025, the total order book hit a record high, 579,137 crore.
Almost 6 lakh crore.
Incredible. It's a huge number, and that's up 22% compared to where they were at the end of March 2024. And echoing the trend we saw in the new orders, nearly half of this massive backlog, 46%, is from international projects.
So huge visibility for future revenue then.
Absolutely. Provides a very strong foundation for activity and revenue recognition in the coming years.
Okay, a record order book is definitely a strong starting point. Now, maybe we can break it down a bit. How did the different business segments perform during the year? Starting with infrastructure projects, that must be a massive chunk of their business.
It is, yeah. Infrastructure projects saw order inflow of 173,226 crore. That's 21% growth. And again, international was big here. 61% of those orders came from outside India.
61% international in infra. Okay.
Revenue for the segment hit 129,897 crore, which is up 15%. And interestingly, their EBITDA margin, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, a measure of core profit, actually improved slightly to 6.4%.
An improved margin in infrastructure. What could
Yeah.
drive that? Better execution, higher margin projects maybe?
Could be a mix of things. Better project management leading to cost savings. Maybe they're being more selective about the projects they bid for, focusing on ones with better potential returns, or perhaps just a slightly better pricing environment. It suggests they're managing that part of the business well operationally.
Okay. What about energy projects? That's another area seeing a lot of global activity.
Energy projects also had a strong year. Order inflow grew 19% to 87,569 crore. This was driven by both their traditional hydrocarbon business and their newer carbon light solutions focusing on greener tech.
Ah, interesting mix.
And international was even bigger here. 73% of the energy orders were international. Revenue growth was particularly strong in this segment, up 38% to 40,668 crore.
38% revenue growth. That's much higher than the order inflow growth. Does that mean they're just executing faster on older energy orders?
That's a likely explanation, yeah.
Oh.
Effectively working through their existing energy backlog. Or could be that some of these energy projects just have shorter completion cycles compared to, say, large infrastructure ones, so revenue gets recognized quicker.
Right, makes sense. Okay, next up, high-tech manufacturing.
High-tech manufacturing also delivered solid numbers. Order inflow up 28% to 18,282 crore. About a fifth of that, 21%, was international. Revenue grew 18% to 9,695 crore.
And margins.
Really quite impressive here. EBITDA margin came in at 17.3%. Suggests pretty strong profitability in their manufacturing operations.
17% margin, yeah, that's strong. Okay, so good performance in the core engineering and manufacturing areas. What about their IT and technology services arm? That's a different beast altogether.
It is. This segment saw order inflow of sets, 47,845 crore, which was 8% growth. Revenue growth matched that, also up 8% to the same figure, 47,845 crore.
Okay, steady growth.
And they maintained a healthy EBITDA margin of 19.5%. This period was also marked by quite a bit of M&A activity in this space for them.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, L&T itself took a stake in E2E Networks. Their LTSCT subsidiary bought Silicon Systems, and LTTS, another subsidiary, acquired IntelliSwift.
So lots of acquisitions, bolstering their capabilities in the digital space, presumably.
Looks like it, yeah. Enhancing capabilities, expanding market reach in that fast-moving tech sector.
Okay. How about financial services?
Financial services reported order inflow of 15,194 crore, up 16%. Revenue was the same number, also up 16%. Yeah. They also marked 30 years of operations during this period. And notably, L&T Finance signed a deal to acquire the gold loan business of Professional Management PVT Ltd, PMFL. So expanding their product offering there.
Strategic move. Okay, what about development projects? This includes things like the Hyderabad Metro, right? And their green hydrogen stuff.
That's right. This segment actually saw a slight dip. Order inflow was down 4% to euro 5,371 crore, and revenue mirrored that, also down 4%.
Why the dip there?
Well, projects like the Metro or developing green hydrogen capacity, they often have really long development cycles, right? Big upfront investment, but it might not translate into huge order inflows revenue recognized within just one financial year. It's more of a long game.
Understood. Lumpy, maybe. Okay, finally, the others category. What's in there?
Others includes businesses like the realty arm, industrial valves, construction equipment, a bit of a mix.
Right.
Here, order inflow is in 9,145 crore, up a modest 2%, but revenue actually declined by 8% to 7,065 crore.
Mixed bag then. Revenue down despite orders being slightly up.
Yeah, likely reflects the different dynamics within those specific businesses. Realty might be doing one thing, valves another. You need to dig into the specifics of each subsegment to really understand the drivers there.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's the segment breakdown. Lots of strong growth, particularly in infra, energy, and high-tech manufacturing, steady in IT, some strategic moves in finance, and a bit mixed elsewhere. Let's zoom back out now. What's the company's overall outlook? The commentary from the chairman and MD sounded pretty upbeat.
Yes, Mr. S.N. Subramanian, the CMD, definitely highlighted the positives. He pointed to achieving their highest ever annual order inflows and that record order book, saying it positions them very strongly for future growth.
And he mentioned the Indian economy specifically.
He did. He talked about the resilience of the Indian economic landscape. He noted things like continued government spending on public infrastructure, but also a noticeable pickup in private sector investment,
Private investment is coming back. In what areas?
particularly in areas crucial for the future, like energy transition, building data centers, and also the real estate sector. He also gave a nod to the government's fiscal policies and the RBI's handling of monetary policy to keep inflation in check. All factors he sees fueling continued economic expansion in India.
Makes sense. What about their view on international markets, given how important those orders are becoming?
They expect investment to keep flowing in the Middle East, both in traditional areas like oil and gas and core infrastructure. But importantly, they're also seeing and positioning for a growing focus on energy transition projects and broader industrialization efforts beyond just oil in that region.
So aligning with the shifts happening there.
Exactly, trying to capture those emerging opportunities.
But it's not all smooth sailing globally, is it? Did they acknowledge the risks?
Oh, yes, definitely. They expressed, cautious optimism. They specifically flagged the turbulent global geopolitical situation, rising trade tariffs, and those persistent disruptions we're still seeing in global supply chains.
Yeah, those are big macro headwinds for anyone operating internationally.
For sure. And
Yeah.
they acknowledge these uncertainties. But despite that, L&T stressed their focus remains firmly on achieving profitable growth and making sure their projects are return accretive. So not just chasing volume, but focusing on quality growth too.
Prudent approach. Did they give any specific forecasts or numbers related to the Indian economy?
Yeah, they referenced the general projections for India's economic growth in FY 2024-25, putting it in the range of 6.25% to 6.50%.
Okay, solid growth projection.
They also mentioned expected growth across key sectors, agriculture, industry services, pointed to easing inflation trends, high manufacturing capacity utilization, and also the rapid pace of digitalization happening across the Indian economy, plus the shift towards high-tech digital solutions and services, all seen as positive drivers.
So despite being aware of global risks, they sound pretty bullish on India's domestic story.
Very much so. They seem to have strong faith in the underlying strength and potential there. They even touched on India's potential role globally.
Oh, yeah. How
Wow.
so?
Talked about India having the potential to become a major global hub for sourcing goods and services, and also aspiring to become the world's fourth largest economy, maybe even sooner than some predict.
Ambitious.
And they briefly noted the estimated global growth rate is around 2.7% for calendar year 2024, and again highlighted specific opportunities they see in the GCC region.
Okay. Let's turn to the paperwork side of things for a moment. The auditor's reports. These are critical for validating the numbers, right? What was the verdict there?
Good news on that front. Both the consolidated and the standalone financial results for the year ended March 31st, 2025, received unmodified opinions from their joint statutory auditors. That's Deloitte Haskins and Sells LLP and MSKA and Associates.
Unmodified opinion. That's the best you can get, isn't it? What exactly does that mean for someone reading the reports?
Yes, it's often called a clean opinion. It essentially means the auditors are saying, yep, based on our audit, these financial statements give a true and fair view of the company's financial position and performance.
Oh.
And importantly, that they've been prepared correctly according to the accounting standards. It gives users of the accounts, like investors, a high level of assurance about the reliability of the numbers.
Comforting to see. And did L&T themselves make a formal statement about this?
They did, yes. Larsen Toubro issued a formal declaration confirming that the auditor's opinions were unmodified for the year ended March 31st, 2025. And interestingly, this declaration was signed by the outgoing company secretary, Mr. Sivaram Nair A., kind of one of his final official acts.
Oh, okay. Adds another layer of confirmation then.
Exactly. Reinforces the integrity of their financial reporting.
Okay, one last piece to cover the utilization of those non-convertible debenture proceeds, the NCBs. Investors always watch how companies use the money they raise.
Right. So L&T had previously disclosed raising 4,000 crore through a private placement of NCDs back on January 22nd, 2025.
4,000 crore. Okay.
The key update now is their confirmation that the entire amount, all euro 4,000 crore, had been fully utilized as of March 31st, 2025.
Fully used by the year end. And crucially, did they use it for what they said they would? Any deviations?
No deviations. They explicitly stated there was no deviation or variation in how the funds were used compared to the intended purposes laid out in the original offer document.
And what were those intended purposes again?
Primarily working capital requirements, refinancing some existing debt, and then other general corporate purposes, but with a cap, up to 20% could be used for that broader category.
Okay.
And they also specifically reiterated that none of the money went into capital markets buying land or anything else the RBI considers ineligible for bank financing. So sticking to the plan provides reassurance to those NCD holders.
Good governance. Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up. It really seems like L&T delivered a robust financial performance in FY 2024-25. We saw record order inflows, strong revenue growth, better profits across most segments.
Well, pretty much across the board.
Plus that significant bump in the recommended dividend. The AGM details are set, and we noted those key leadership changes in the secretarial function.
Exactly. And their outlook, particularly on India, seems very positive. They appear strategically positioned to capitalize on expected growth, even while keeping a wary eye on, those global economic uncertainties.
And the clean audit opinions and the confirmation on the NCD fund usage just add to that picture of sound financial management and governance.
Agreed. It all paints a fairly consistent picture of a company performing well and managing its affairs diligently.
So maybe a final thought then for you, our listener, to ponder. L&T has this huge and growing international order book. They're increasingly focused on critical global sectors like renewable energy, core infrastructure. What kind of role do you think a major player like L&T will actually play in shaping the global economy and, maybe more importantly, contributing to global sustainability efforts in the coming years?
That's a big question.
It is, and digging into their full integrated annual report when it comes out will definitely give more clues on their strategic thinking there. But something to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.